humanity sets the agenda.
9:19 exactly. This is News and Views right here on Salam Media. Thank you for being with me in the second hour of the show. And next we'll be joined by Duma Gqubule. He is an independent economist and director of the Center for Economic Development and Transformation. We're going to try and understand why the South African rand has hit its weakest point in 12 months. That was yesterday, and this on the back of a stronger dollar and an expected hike in the US interest rates. Now, I've said this often enough. I've always said that somebody just needs to sneeze in the United States, and sadly, we here in South Africa catch a cold. So let's understand how a stronger dollar has an impact on us as South Africa and other emerging markets. Duma, good morning. Welcome to the program.
Hi, thank you for the invite here.
Lovely to have you on the show, and hopefully you're going to educate us and make us understand why why this plays out as it does, and is there anything at all that South Africa ought to be doing, should be doing, to keep our rand at a pretty level base, so to speak, and not let foreign markets or first world countries' actions impact on our dollar?
Okay, that's a very good question. So I just want to say that many years ago, I decided there's no point watching the rand-dollar exchange rate.
It's
Hello?
very depressing,
because,
isn't it?
No. The reason for that is that the movement of the rand has got very little to do with what happens in the South African economy. So the movements of the rand go with other emerging market currency generally. So all the dollar is at the center of the universe in terms of world currency markets. So what happens to the dollar influences every other currency. So when I try to understand what's happening with the rand, I look at what's happening at what we call the dollar-euro exchange rate. So that's what governs all the movement of all currencies in the world. So what's been happening recently is that there's a whole thing, inflation has been increasing globally due to global energy prices and supply chain bottlenecks, after the end of the COVID. And so the U.S. inflation has went up to 6.2%. Remember, their interest rates are still at 0 to 0.25%. And so the expectation is that the U.S. is going to end its monetary policies, which have been very accommodating towards the U.S. economy. They have been printing money, I think about $4 trillion since the start of the crisis, to keep the interest rates low and support the government spending. And at the same time, the interest rates are still low at 0.25%. So if you increase the cost of capital in the U.S., the interest rates go up. That means that people want to buy the dollar, and there's people buy emerging market currencies. So that's what's happening on world markets. But if you look at our currency over the past year, it's exactly where it was about a year ago. But since June, there's been quite a sharp depreciation of the currency. Yeah.
So, a layperson like myself don't really understand, the backstory as far as, the economic issues are concerned, the dollar, just what happens on world markets as far as currencies are concerned. But I'm trying to also understand in terms of political issues in South Africa, the riots that we had recently, and then also the issue around the economy that was shut down due to COVID. That has impacted shutdown economies, has happened all around the world. We were also impacted by that. But riots and instability in a country, in a particular country, not necessarily only South Africa, how does that impact? Because that's not directly tied to the dollar, is it?
Yes. Well, generally, as a rule, there's been studies done about this, that the rand is not moved by domestic events, So we like to think that what we do is important in terms of the movement of this country, but quite frankly, over the long period, it has very little to do with what happens domestically. Whether it did move historically, like when Jacob Zuma fired but as a general rule, it has got very little to do with what has happened domestically. Yeah.
Okay, so in terms of our gold reserves, our precious minerals, etc., is there a link at all?
No, during the crisis, South Africa's got very high gold and foreign exchange reserves. I think they're about close to 900 billion rand in terms of reserves. And some of us have been calling that, it's too much reserves for a country that has got such high levels of poverty. We should be releasing some of these reserves into the economy. And recently, the IMF gave us a free allocation of reserves. It went to all countries in the world. They use the INC currency, which is called the SDR. It's like a Bitcoin for the world economy. So they released the reserves to all the countries, and we got quite a lot of them. And I don't think we need to be having such high reserves. It's way in excess of what we need to finance our imports. And I've been arguing that we should use some of these reserves to support our economy and give it a stimulus. Yeah.
All right. Now, as an economist and director of the Center for Economic Development, you're the right person and transformation, obviously, to answer this question. How do we kickstart our economy? How do we create jobs? I was always under the understanding that, like America, when they keep printing paper money and make it available into the economy, there'll be more spending, and that turns the economy around. Can a similar situation work for us here in South Africa? The big thing, obviously, is job creation. So for the IMF to release funds to us from our own reserves, we're not asking for a handout, we're asking for money out of our own reserves. Can this be the magic wand we're waiting for? It's because there is such high rates of unemployment and people are just absolutely destitute. They're very, very easily, very easily influenced into getting involved in all sorts of unsavory activities. You can get them involved politically and otherwise, crime, etc., etc. So we need that magic wand. Would that be the magic wand that would possibly address some of the problems in the country?
Yes, because what people need to understand is that when there's a recession like we've had, it means there's too little money flowing into the economy, and the private sector won't invest in the economy because me and you don't have money. So why should they invest? So what people are saying globally, what people did is that they decided that the government must spend. So the stimulus packages throughout the world was $16 trillion, and that is about 17% of world GDP. And they also printed money. The four largest central banks, the US, the European Central Bank, the Bank of Japan, and the Bank of England, they printed money to support the economy, to keep interest rates low, and also to finance the government expenditure. Let me just give you one example. The UK stimulus for COVID was $350 billion. The entire $350 billion was financed by the central bank. So what I'm trying to say is that, yes, in South Africa, there's no way out of this crisis except to spend more money. So you have to give, if we use some of our reserves, as you say, it's a magic wand, it doesn't cost money for us to use these reserves. It doesn't increase our debt. It doesn't increase our debt service cost. So yes, it is a magic wand that we can use to stimulate our economy. Because what you saw in July, the cost of the riots far in excess of the cost of that grant that the government was giving to the people that they had to reintroduce. Yeah. So the government stopped the grant in end of April, and then 9 weeks later, we had the biggest the riots since the end of apartheid. And now they're mopping up, they're counting the costs. The IDC has to pay people, the SASRA has to pay insurance. It's in excess of 50 billion rand that we had to pay to the cost of these riots. So we have to we can't make a gamble on the political stability of our country. Unemployment is at 44%. We have to get this economy going again. Yeah.
So obviously, poverty and unemployment is the key agitator for
Yes,
riots
yes.
and instability in any country. Let's look at the issue around grants. Clearly, the government can't keep on giving grants. We can't become a welfare state. And again, we come to the issue around the reserves and putting that money and making that money work for the people and work for the country. So, and obviously the unemployed and the hungry are demanding grants, but that's not necessarily the answer. I'm trying to think, does government not see the bigger picture? Where are you guys, the economists, with these great pieces of advice? Why does this not reach the ears of government and make them understand that this is how you make the country work?
Yes, you're right. And they do call us, but they don't listen. But let me just give you an example. I was talking about these stimulus packages throughout the world. There were 735 cash-based measures implemented in 186 countries in the wake of the recession last year. Every single country gave cash to its people. Last week, Japan gave 13,500 rand to households to support the economy. And the reason why they use cash is that the cash is an immediate injection of money into the economy. It doesn't require tenders and projects. And then they blend it with infrastructure and growth to grow the economy, infrastructure spending to grow the economy. So once you combine cash payouts to the people and also infrastructure that creates jobs, then you have that's what every single stimulus package in the world did. And there were some huge ones. In India, it went to about 100 million people. In South Korea, the whole population. And in Israel, the entire population of Israel got cash payouts. In the U.S., most of the population got cash, the stimulus checks. I think they got 3 stimulus checks from the government. These are rich countries that have also done the same thing. Imagine us, who are much poorer than these countries. I'm trying to say, this is what every country did under the situation. Yeah.
Okay, we do hope and pray that the Minister of Finance is listening into this program and picks up a few tips and, common sense prevails. I need to wrap up, but very quickly, we've had a question from a caller wanting your take on the property market. Is it going to recover and how soon?
That's a very good question. There was a boom in the property market in the early 2000s, which hasn't been repeated. And property is a function of interest rates, and our interest rates are at record lows. But the problem with the situation now is that they coincide with record levels of unemployment, poverty, and people who don't work. So 1.5 million. So interest rates are lower, but there isn't enough income going around. So we need some kind of stimulus to this economy to get people. This is not to say that there aren't pockets where property isn't rising, but at the national level, our property market has not really. I don't see any. Our South African economy on the current trajectory until 2030, I don't see anything happening for the economy, whether it's property, I don't know. It's like a bleak situation which we're facing as a country until we change our policies. Yeah.
Duma, it's been an absolute eye-opener talking with you this morning. Hope we have many more conversations in the future. Go well, and thank you once again for your time and your insights.
Thank you so much.
That was Duma Gqubule, Independent Economist and Director for the Center of Economic Development and Transformation, 9:33 exactly.
These days, I'm